there were multiple times that my family, whether it was my parents or my sister or myself, told different leaders in different churches what had happened because he was invited to speak in these churches.
Okay, right.
And we privately told them because
Wow.
we felt strongly that he should not be in the
Exactly.
pulpit, especially in a pulpit where I'm going to go, where
Right.
I am going to be in church.
Right.
And I really don't know um, why they didn't listen. I don't know if they called Robert and got his side of the story and believed him. There was one pastor in Oklahoma City that he mentioned his name from the pulpit, and it just was horrible when he mentioned his name from the pulpit, and this would have probably been maybe in 2008, 7, somewhere in that 5 to 8, 2008 range. And um, I immediately went to him, and it was a pretty large church, and he knew who we were. And I said, "You can never say his name from the pulpit again." Like, I was traumatized by hearing his name. And I said, "This is what he did to me. And I can't come back to church here if you are going to preach on his books. He lied in his book." Like, I kind of went through the whole thing, and he was just mortified by it. And he said, "I will never speak of him again from the pulpit. And I'm so sorry." And he ended up letting him come to the church and meet with him privately because Robert had heard through the grapevine that he knew, and Robert wanted to probably save face with this man,
Yeah.
I would assume.
Clemishire says she has shared her story with friends, family, and those willing to listen for years, despite some inner conflict.
Like most believers, you don't want to do anything that's going to tarnish the name of God. You don't want to tarnish the church. You don't want to hurt other believers. You don't want to cause another person to not come to Jesus. And so I never wanted it to be a big exposing, I just wanted someone in leadership somewhere to take him out of the pulpit because we did not feel as a family that that's where he should be.
Even after hearing her story, Clemishire claims no leader would take action.
Anytime he would speak in a church that we were associated with or going to in any way, either I would or my parents or my sister would go and confront leadership and talk to them and explain to them what happened to our family and to me. And not once has any leadership stood up and said, "This isn't biblical. You should not be in leadership." My sister was a member of New Life Church when Ted Haggard fell.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know that story or if you're
Mm.
familiar with it,
Mm. Mhm.
but it's in Colorado Springs. It was in 2006, I believe, is when it came out. You can do your research on that. It's a pretty sad story. And he was actually a friend of our family and had come to preach and minister at our hometown church also. Um, when he was let go from the church in 2006, they did a pastor search committee. And in 2007, they called Brady Boyd from Gateway, one of the executive pastors from Gateway, to be the pastor there.
Mm.
And my sister was a very active member in that church, and they called for anyone to come and speak to the board if they had any questions or wanted to present anything, that if there was a reason that he shouldn't. And she went and presented the entire story, what Robert did, the whole experience. She took pictures so that people could see what I looked like when I was 12, and told them the in-depth story and presented it to the entire board or the committee that was calling Brady. And she just didn't feel like it was appropriate to bring him when he was connected to Robert and Robert was going to
Mm.
be kind of overseeing the church. Just
Right.
didn't make sense. Why would you do that when we've
Right.
already gone through this trauma of Ted having a major moral failure?
Right.
Why would we bring more trauma into our church?
Right.
And so he ended up being called, and he was there. Karen had to leave the church because Robert started going and preaching and teaching, and they were doing ministry and things like that. I don't think that Robert has been involved the last few years
Mm.
at that church, but
Mhm.
I know it was very traumatic for my sister to have to deal with that. And just
Yeah.
the fact that she presented that to an entire church board and nothing was done
Yeah.
with the information.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And
Yeah.
people often say, why wasn't Robert vetted? Why didn't they interview him more before he became the pastor? Well, he started Gateway. There was no vetting, there was no interviewing. He founded Gateway. Gateway is his church. And not once has any leadership stood up and said, this isn't biblical. You should not be in leadership. Honestly, you should be gracious to this family and not be that you're not in prison.